Hello, I'm Dr. Chris Parker from Loughborough University School of Design and Creative Arts, and this is week 2 of Usability Principles and Practice. Actually, this week we're breaking the video into 2 parts to help you really get to terms with the concepts. The first part is about usability evaluation, so the things that influence everyone, the things we should do to make sure websites are just good to use, good practice. Then in part 2, we're going into accessibility. These are the things that are for people with specific disabilities. So you might have a hearing impairment, you might have a visual impairment, you might have something like Parkinson's where you shake a bit, making a mouse difficult to use. So what can we do to make sure our websites and our systems are accessible for those people? However, it's worth bearing in mind that when you make something better for a small group of people, you tend to make it good for everyone. So it's a very important part of usability overall. But we're talking about usability today, how you evaluate it as an expert. And we're going to do that by recognizing the role heuristics play in identifying usability issues to influence the redesign of websites. You will also be able to, at the end of this video, describe Nielsen's heuristics for usability evaluation. So, what are heuristics? A heuristic is something which serving to indicate or point out, stimulating interest as a means of further investigation. That's the dictionary definition, and it's not particularly useful. So, what it just means is it's a list of things saying, hey, go and do this, it will help you. So the general answer in UX design when we say heuristics is Nielsen. We're going to come on to him in a few minutes, but Nielsen made some great guidelines of designing usable interfaces. We're going to be working on that. Now, the deeper answer is there are hundreds of heuristics out there. There's hundreds of lists saying do this and make your interface usable, but we're focusing really on Nielsen. So what are Nielsen's systems? Let's go into that. So there are 10 principles, 10 guidelines saying usable technology should be X. Now, the important part is he didn't create it for websites. The internet was a year away. He was just saying systems, just things that humans are using. So this was created in the 1990s. Bear in mind, the internet was a year away from Tim Berners-Lee, at least the World Wide Web version of the internet. And they've been the basis of expert reviews across the field. When you speak to UX designers and consultants, often they'll say they use Nielsen as the basis of what they do. What are they? There's 10 points. I'm going to go through them very quickly, and then we're going to go deeper into what they are. So it's the visibility of system status. It's matching between system and real world. It's giving the user control and freedom to work the system, being consistent in how you approach tasks, preventing user error, having user recognize actions rather than recalling from memory, have flexibility and efficiency to do what you want to do, be beautiful, aesthetic, and have a minimal design, help users recognize and diagnose and recover from errors when they happen, and provide helpful documentation. Let's jump through this. So, visible system status. So, keep the user informed with what's going on. Now, let's have a quick history lesson. Apple pioneered the stuff in the 80s and 90s. Started out with a watch icon when the system was working, but the problem is you didn't know what's happening. Has the system frozen or is it working? How long are we going to be here? I don't know. And that's frustrating. They replaced this with what they currently have, which is the beach ball of death. It just spins and the spinning tells you nothing. Progress bars we see here, they were introduced to say, hey, you are 10% along, 20% along. The problem is that occasionally a large task comes along on the computer, machine slows down, it's working on it, but it's going to take a while. So we look at this bar that's not progressing and go, wow, what's happening? Has my computer frozen? And we restart the machine and destroy everything. So they're not very good. When we actually tell the user, hey, I'm doing this, I'm searching for this, I'm processing that, I'm looking at this, I'm doing that, then we can actually extend the time that the process takes multiple factors, multiple times, because the user goes, it's okay. I know you're working on this task. It's fine. And I can see the tasks are changing. So system status is very important. Now, matching between the real world and the computer, that is such an incredibly important thing because we have expectations in the world. So we want the language and the images and the styles used on the computer to match the metaphors in our minds. And you see this happening all over the place. Real world conventions. This is a kid's website, you look what's there, the light bulbs, ideas, there's the popcorn for music, there's the music treble clef for music stuff, there's a padlock for locking things out, so parental control. So even though this is a modern flat UI for children, it's still got recognizable real-world systems. We can delve a bit deeper into this quickly by looking at skeuomorphic interfaces. Now, on the left, we have a music plugin array. Now, this was developed for technicians in the music industry who were used to, for many years, having these big rack-mounted systems and physically jacking wires between them. Say the sound goes here, the sound goes there. That's what they had in their mind. That's how their mind worked. So replicating this logic on a computer made it easy to use. There's absolutely no reason for this. We could have just text saying, hey, it goes here. But this is much easier to see. It's also easy to learn because we learn the world by playing as babies and we pick things up and plug them in. And we know that this connects to that. So you can see what happens even if you don't know. On the right-hand side, we see two versions of iBooks, and this is an important lesson. iBooks at the top, like a bookcase, came along when iBooks was brand new. The idea of having a library of books on your phone was completely new, revolutionary with iPhone and iPad. So giving a skeuomorphic interface helped users learn the system because they already had critical concepts in mind. In, I believe it was iOS 7, Apple went down and flattened the entire interface. We got something very similar to the bottom image with the white background on the books. Why did they do this? Because we as users had already learned that this is how iBooks works. This is how libraries on my phone works. We didn't need the metaphor to help us learn. We already understood. So skeuomorphic interfaces are fantastic if you are bringing in a new concept. If you are bringing in something where the user is new to the system, it helps them along. But once they're used to it, they actually get in the way because they're more complex than they need to be. You can then simplify it. So like last week, know your users. User control and freedom. Right. We make mistakes as users and we do the wrong thing all the time. So it's very important to have, emergency exits. So undo and redo, or remember Photoshop or any Adobe products, you have the history of actions. Having that to go through is such a great help because you make mistakes. It gives you ability to recover. Consistency. So here we have 4 Windows products lined up. And this is actually from my own work. You don't need to learn every single Word product from the start because the logic of the ribbon interface at the top, which was brought in around 2007, I believe, that is uniform across all programs. When Microsoft bring out a new program, they use the same ribbon interface. They make it easy to use. So you can just use it. Now, quite often when I'm teaching, I'll have international students. They may have an interface written in Russian or Greek or Chinese, and I can't read any of those languages. However, because I know the interface of the general Microsoft environment, it's easy. I know how to use it. They're being consistent. Systems need to prevent errors. Now, what you can do is just saying, hey, we're not going to let you choose anything which is wrong. So this is a website for selecting flights. Now you choose a flight on one day. It will not let you choose a flight day back that there isn't a flight. You can't fly there and back in the same day if there's no flight back, so it constrains you. You're booking your holiday, you probably want to go for 1 week, so we're going to just suggest, hey, go for this 1 week automatically. By doing anything which prevents you from putting in the wrong information, you are preventing an error which is going to help the user enormously. Having recall rather than recognition. Sorry, that's completely wrong. Recognition rather than recall. Now, what this is our memories are really bad. And if we say, you've got to learn this and you've got to remember it, and the next time you come here, you've got to bring that memory back and apply it, well, that's great if you're being there a lot, but if you're a casual user or you've got other things in your mind, that's not very good. So saying if an interface looks easy to use, intuitive, you've got symbols which you recognize, that helps a lot. This is Google. Now, you put in one word and it says, hey, the top 2 things, this is what you searched for last time. I searched for university library and whistleblower, and I have to sit there and going, what did I search about last week? Or I don't have to search through my history, it's already there. The other part of providing other searches that everyone else is looking for, that's just helpful as well, because that's predicting what I want. But really go with the fact that when you provide users with what they've already done or making things simple and clear, it's much better than asking them to use their minds. Remember, never let the user play detective. Number 7, flexibility and efficiency of use. Now, you are going to be at some point a basic user who doesn't know what they're doing, and then as you advance in skill and knowledge, you become an advanced user. And advanced users want to get in and do lots of tinkering and setting things up. So your email gets checked every 2 seconds rather than 10 minutes, whatever it is. Now, we can give you, as a new user, all the options from the start to say, hey, have at it, go for it. Now, if you're an experienced user coming to a new platform, that is great, because you go, oh, wow, here's all the things I want. And, that's great. But if you're a new user, it'll confuse you. And you go, what the hell's this? So giving simple paths straight away. So novice users just get through with as many things assumed or implemented automatically. That's help. Then give the advanced users advanced settings where needed. Now, this one's a bit contentious. Aesthetics and minimalist design. The point is saying it must be beautiful with whatever the current trend's idea of beauty is, and the design must be minimalist. Now, why do I say minimalist slowly? It's because it's a very relative term. Minimal design does not mean one button on a page or one color. Minimal design is no more colors, no more features, no more buttons, no more anything than you need. Now, for something very simple like checking the weather, you only need 1 or 2 buttons, a weather symbol, maybe some writing of what the weather is going to be, a button saying check now maybe, but you don't need much. But if you're going to design a banking app, you need a lot more. So a minimal banking app is more complex than a minimal phone app, but they are both minimal. I also talked about skeuomorphic design earlier on, in that skeuomorphic design is great to help the new users understand the system, learn the metaphors and learn the system. So you can be minimalist and have skeuomorphic, but skeuomorphic is not minimal when the user already knows the metaphors. So it's very relative, but you really think about paring your interface down as much as possible. Number 9, helping users recognize and recover from errors. Really simple thing. We make errors all the time. We enter the wrong thing. This is an example of MailChimp. So you enter your username and password, you make a mistake. Now, quite often websites say, hey, there's an error, try again. And you're left going, what on earth was that? Was it my password? Was it my username? Did I add my email rather than username? There's a whole load of things. The website knows what you made a mistake with. So why don't you just tell the user the mistake they made. In this case, it's, hey, sorry, your password's wrong. Put in a different password. That saves a whole load of errors because, you could be going around in circles trying whole loads of new passwords when actually it was your email address typed in wrong. So really just help them along. Here's an example of 404 error pages. So this modcloth is great. So when you get to a page that doesn't exist, a 404 error, then it says, hey, sorry, can't do that. Here's a little funny thing to make you smile, which is good parts of dark UX. And hey, here's 6 actions that we think you're going to like to do. Why don't you shop for sale, shop for shoes, shop for new arrivals, etc. So it's saying there's a problem here. You can't go any further, but it's okay. Do this instead. Finally, number 10, help and documentation. Now, think about computers. If you go back to 1980s, 1990s, or early 90s, computers came with massive manuals telling you everything about it. You open up a copy of Microsoft Office and there's a big stonking manual to go with it. And you were expected to refer to this and read it to find the answers. Not anymore. Back in, I believe, 98, Apple launched the colourful Mac. What was it called? Can't remember. But the colourful Mac came out and its user manual was famously 3 pages long. You didn't need a user manual because everything was so intuitive. And that tends to apply to all software and platforms these days. We don't have manuals when you download an app. But you should have stuff there. You should have documentation. You should have help. Make it available when and where people want it. So on Facebook, it's top right. It's in a very similar place in Microsoft Word. When you want to find an advanced solution, it's there. You might not use it all the time, but at some point you will use it and it will help you. Without it, there's no help. So what is the value of heuristics? Why do we care about heuristics? They have an advantage of being very quick and inexpensive. You can just look through this list and say, is the website working well? It lets you get feedback straight away. You don't have to organize any great user testing, user trial. You can just do it. And it works with all usability methods. So no matter what you're doing, throwing in a quick heuristic evaluation is a great, fast way of getting stuff done. The bad thing is that you need knowledge of the system and experience of your users. If you don't know who your users are, the problems they face, the struggle in life, all that good stuff we talked about in week 1, then you're not going to make really good judgments. So be careful. It's difficult to find these people and, they're expensive sometimes. So hiring somebody who is good enough to really work through this is difficult. Deeper insights than heuristics are even rarer, which is what we're talking about on this whole podcast, videocast series. And finally, you may focus on tiny issues and not see the big flaws in the design. Say, oh, there's this small little label here, this small little thing there. Let's patch it up and fix it. When what you actually need to do is tear the entire site down and work again, because it's not solving the user's underlying needs. It's just making something which is not very good into something that's very usable. Now, when Nielsen created his heuristics, it was part of something called Usability Engineering, in that we could be very specific and very technical and very scientific about creating usable interfaces. And as a term, since 2004, you see it's died slow death. It's still there, but people aren't really thinking about it. We are now thinking about being UX researchers. We are researching the experience. Usability, as we talked about in week 1, is part of the experience. So we now see usability as part of a wider scheme. It's relative to the user. It's changes over time, changes in context, and we must empathize with the user in order to make that better. Now, there we go. That's heuristics. That's heuristics 101 over and done with. So If you like this content, please like the video, comment below and subscribe. Now I'm going to move on to part 2, where we're going to cover accessibility, how you can do a similar approach but work out accessibility for people with different disabilities.